Hamas hails attack as West Bank shooting kills 3 Israeli cops. In a brazen assault that has ratcheted up tensions across the occupied West Bank, 3 Israeli police officers were gunned down on Sunday near the city of Hebron. The attack, described by Israeli officials as a drive-by shooting, sent shockwaves through the region and prompted a swift and aggressive response from Israeli security forces. As the dust settled on this latest outbreak of violence, Hamas was quick to praise the deadly ambush. While stopping short of claiming responsibility, the militant group hailed the attack as a natural response to the massacres and genocide in the Gaza Strip. In a statement dripping with defiance, Hamas called on all armed Palestinians to direct their bullets at the chests of the occupiers who continue to commit massacres against our people in Gaza Strip. The shooting, which took place near the Aidna-Tarqamiya junction, marks a significant escalation in what has already been a week of heightened military activity across the West Bank. Israeli forces have been engaged in one of their largest operations in months, aimed at rooting out what they describe as Iranian-backed Islamist militants. In the aftermath of the attack, Israeli security forces swiftly encircled a house in Hebron, ultimately killing a Palestinian suspect believed to have carried out the shooting. This rapid response underscores the hair-trigger tensions that now pervade the West Bank, where every incident threatens to spark a wider conflagration. The deadly shooting near Hebron wasn't the only flashpoint on Sunday. In a separate incident that highlights the widening scope of the conflict, the Palestinian Red Crescent reported that 2 Palestinian brothers had been shot by Israeli forces in the town of Kafr Dan, outside Jenin. This area has been a focal point of Israeli military operations since last Wednesday, with hundreds of troops deployed in a sweeping campaign that has left a trail of destruction in its wake. Israeli minister warns of another October 7-like attack. As Israel grapples with this latest security crisis, some of its most hawkish politicians are sounding the alarm about the potential for an even more catastrophic attack. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, a hardline member of Israel's security cabinet, issued a stark warning from the scene of Sunday's shooting. "We are a step away from October 7th in Judea and Samaria and the center of the country," Smotrich declared, invoking the specter of Hamas' devastating assault on southern Israel last year. His words paint a chilling picture of a West Bank primed to explode, with Palestinian militants potentially poised to launch an attack that could rival or even surpass the horrors of October 7th. Smotrich's solution to this looming threat is as uncompromising as it is controversial. "We need to do now what we didn't do that awful night and launch a preemptive strike and strike terrorism hard," he urged, calling for a massive military operation that would aim to crush Palestinian militant groups before they can strike. The finance minister's bellicose rhetoric reflects a growing sentiment among some Israeli officials that the current approach to security in the West Bank is insufficient. "We are committed to eliminating terrorism on all fronts," Smotrich declared, framing the conflict as an existential struggle against what he described as a cruel enemy who wants to murder us all. This hardline stance comes as Israeli forces are already engaged in an intense campaign across the West Bank. The operation, now in its 5th day, has caused extensive damage to infrastructure in Jenin and the adjacent refugee camp. Streets have been torn up by armored bulldozers hunting for roadside bombs, while multiple houses and buildings bear the scars of fierce fighting. Dead hostages were listed for release in first stage of deal. As the violence in the West Bank escalates, Israel is also grappling with a tragic development in the ongoing hostage crisis. The Israeli military announced on Sunday that it had recovered the bodies of 6 hostages from a tunnel complex in Gaza, dealing a devastating blow to hopes for their safe return. In a cruel twist that has further inflamed tensions, reports in the Israeli press suggest that 3 of the hostages whose bodies were found Hirsch Goldberg Pollen, Eden Yerushalmi, and Carmel Gat were slated for release in the first phase of a ceasefire deal that has been under negotiation for months. This revelation has sparked outrage among the families of the hostages and their supporters, who accuse Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of abandoning the captives. The Hostage Families Forum, an organization representing many of the abductees' relatives, issued a scathing statement. Netanyahu abandoned the abductees. This is now a fact. The forum's anger is palpable, and they are calling for unprecedented action to force the government's hand. Starting tomorrow, the country will tremble, they warned, urging the public to prepare to bring the country to a standstill through nationwide protests and a general strike. The discovery of the hostages' bodies has also reignited debates about the ongoing negotiations for a ceasefire and hostage release deal. A deal for the return of the hostages has been on the table for over 2 months, the Hostage Families Forum pointed out. Were it not for the delays, sabotage, and excuses, those whose deaths we learned about this morning would likely still be alive. As Israel reels from this latest tragedy, the pressure on Netanyahu's government to secure the release of the remaining hostages is likely to intensify. With approximately 100 captives still unaccounted for in Gaza, the race to bring them home alive has taken on a new urgency. The confluence of escalating violence in the West Bank, warnings of potential large-scale attacks, and the heartbreaking news about the hostages paints a picture of a region teetering on the brink. As Israel grapples with threats on multiple fronts, the coming days and weeks may prove decisive in shaping the future of this long-running conflict. Subscribe for more.